But anyway, I think we can welcome in our first guest. Um, we're really
Yeah,
honored, I
go for it.
think, to have Tej be able to join us. He does R&D for Pro Football Focus, and he does sports analytics up at UM, the other Block M school. Welcome, Tej. We're going to talk about some data analytics and maybe some Michigan and some Lions football as well. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, come on
Yeah,
in.
no, thank you guys so much for having me on today. I'm really excited to talk about the draft with you guys.
Nice. Oh, there you are. Oh, so happy I can see your
yeah, for
beautiful
sure.
face. Yeah, I
I
I
will.
wa-
I'll start. Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, I was gonna say I watched some of the Pro Football Focus draft stream. Where how much were you keeping track of all the Pro Football Focus guys? Like, how much interaction do you get with them?
So I communicate with them basically every day. I think, Eric and Austin and Mike and Anthony and the rest of the PFF team do like a really good job with covering the draft and, mixing in both like the analytics and the PFF grades and then also just like their own opinions based off film too. They do a really good job of blending them together and everything.
Hmm. Very
Yeah,
nice.
for sure. I mean, I'll start off by saying, Tej, I've seen what you put up on like Twitter and stuff. Your models and analytics. I'm a former political economist. I think about questions in a similar way in terms of like data driven and modeling
Mhm.
and such. So I've always really respected the work that you put out, as well as, a lot of the Michigan team.
Yeah.
I really wanted to get you out here to get your opinion on how, what's coming next in terms of, data and player evaluation, right? Because, PFF, obviously, I don't always agree with the PFF grades. I will, full disclosure, right? Um, but
Yeah.
you guys are the cutting edge essentially at this point, using your machine learning techniques and whatnot. So I guess I'll start off by asking you this, Tej. How this is kind of a broad question, but how is the addition of data science into football changing the way we evaluate players, in your opinion?
Mhm. Yeah, no, I mean that's a really good way to start off thinking about the way analytics can kind of change football. And so, like the thing about analytics in football is kind of looks at football from a very broad view. So like it's a lot of things involved with team building and positional value and different stuff like that. The draft is a little bit of a rougher area for analytics to get into right now because college data just isn't as available as in the NFL. And so it's
Hmm.
much harder for, analytics to really evaluate draft prospects. That's why a lot of analytics people during draft season will use consensus big boards done by people who really grind the film and
Hmm.
stuff like that. And
Is
that's the way that they kind of get, like a feel for the draft class. But, analytics from a team building perspective gives us a better idea of, when you should draft certain positions. And then also, kind of the ways to manipulate the draft with trading back and accumulating more draft picks because one of the main analytics like points is like, oh, the draft is a crapshoot. Oh, the hit rate is lower than what
Mhm.
people actually think it is. So if you're trading back, getting more draft picks, you're giving yourself more dart throws to hit on a player. And like that's like a good thing to do for the future and everything.
Yeah. So when you say that it's harder to find data for college players compared to the NFL, is that like an AWS like data type thing, or is that just literally because the film is harder to find and there's more of it, and so you just need people to scrub through and actually make those evaluations?
Yeah, no, it's a combination of both. Yes, like it's just there's so much resources that go into tracking the NFL. There's a lot less games and a lot less teams than there are in college.
Right.
So it's much easier to have like a place to go get the data. There's a lot more research being poured into it and stuff like that. But then when you go to college, you have guys coming from different divisions, different conferences. Like it's a lot of adjustment that the analytics people have to make during the draft process. And then another thing that college football doesn't have that's like more available right now is college tracking data. So like in the NFL, you have, the next gen stats and the dots and all that stuff where it tracks where each player is on the field every tenth of a second through a chip in their shoulder pad.
Hmm.
That's not a thing in college football.
Right.
So you have to get tracking data different ways if you want to figure out like how fast players are running and their pass block win rate and all that stuff to be able to evaluate these different types of players during the draft process.
Sure. And if you don't mind me asking, how does this framework actually translate into what you do day to day? Does that kind of affect what you're actually doing in terms of your R&D?
Yeah, no, it definitely does for sure. It's a lot of different there's different processes that you have. A lot of the models that we've built in R&D are more like NFL specific. And like one of the things that you kind of learn during the draft process is you can't take a model that's trained on all this NFL data and that's set up the way you would set up an NFL model where you do adjust for team strength and stuff like that, but you don't do a ton of other adjustments because in the NFL when you play 17 games over an aggregate you end up playing basically the same competition and all that stuff. In college you're just playing a wide variety of competition, so you have to make a lot more adjustments when you look at someone's data and you try to compare someone who's playing in the FCS compared to someone who's playing, an SEC schedule.
Yeah, I imagine, part of it, implementing even like the chip and the shoulder pads is kind of an equity issue, right? Where we already have very good evaluative, procedures on guys from like Alabama and Clemson and, Georgia or whatever, because we just have so much information on them. And they're likely the ones that get the chips and the shoulder pads first.
Right.
But really, who we want to know about is Tariq Woolen and Zion McCollum and, Ali Marpet and these guys that like we have no idea who they are, and Quinn Miners, and we're trying to figure out, how to evaluate these guys that we are watching them play against, no offense, people who are going to have jobs outside of football within a few months, right? And so, it's an interesting thing as well. I have kind of a interesting, this may sound like a job interview question, right? But like, what are some individual variables you think that might be super helpful for your process, right? Maybe there's one variable that you would want that like maybe applies to all players, or like there's like single point of data that it might be the silver bullet for evaluating quarterbacks or whatever. Like what are some data in a perfect world? What variables would you be able to
We got
gather,
some
you
trade
think?
secrets going on over here. We gotta be careful.
No, I really love that question. And the way I try to think about the draft is if in a perfect world, if we were able to create one metric to evaluate draft players, it would be projected wins above replacement. Like if a player, comes out in the draft,
Sure.
in the first 4 years, like when they're on their rookie contract with their team, how many wins above replacement do we think that they're going to add to that team? Because that solves a lot of debates that happened during draft season, like the Penny Sewell versus Jamar Chase debate from 2 years ago. If we had in perfect world again, like you said, if we had a metric that gave us the projected WAR of Jamar Chase and the projected WAR of Penny Sewell, like that would we would be able to figure out who the Bengals should have taken at that spot. And then it also solves when you debate in between positions, right? Like if we have a score of a player coming out, or like a grade or whatever, can that translate to having a higher projected WAR? And then you can take Evan Neal over Ekwonu because of that, or just different stuff like that when you're comparing between positions and comparing within position.
Yeah, and to me that screams a lot about also like projecting that change in war over time, right? Where you see the distribution. Dalton Miller is coming on later. He is one of the biggest preachers about never draft tight ends, right? Tight ends take 3 years to develop minimum to be any effective in any offense, no matter how good they are, right? Even Kyle Pitts, like he was really good, but he was only doing one thing last year, right? And so that's what that screams to me. And I agree with you. That's baseball's figured it out for years now, right? They've had for decades.
They like to claim that they have,
stuff.
but yeah.
Right, and what it comes down to right now, without that metric, is okay. What is your team building philosophy, right? I'm a Cowboys fan, in case you can't tell by this little star over here. But I guess your opinion, if you were building a team, right? Who knows how you're doing? I was watching clips from Major League, the movie. I don't know if you've seen that movie earlier. But they have, they build their own team essentially, right? So if you're building a team, what's your philosophy? What are some foundational pillars you stand by?
Yeah, and so if I'm building a team, something that I would put into place right away is process over results, which is something I strongly believe in football and in like other areas of life too, right? Like, so if when you're approaching the draft, there's just so much randomness that happens, and so much of it comes down to your coaching staff and how they develop players and stuff you might not even know about players when you're drafting them. But as long as you have a good process in place, where in the first round you're taking premium positions, right? So you're taking, a general rule of thumb is you're taking quarterbacks, you're taking receivers, edge rushers, and then cornerbacks. If you're taking a guard or a running back in the top 15 or top 20, that's like generally not a good rule to follow unless they're generational at that position. You see that with the Quentin Nelson selection from a couple of years ago with the Colts. Like they definitely don't regret selecting him there, and like I was all for that at the time, and I still am. It was a good decision for them to take him there because you knew you were getting basically a perennial all pro guard at that position. And then another thing I would do in the draft is like I mentioned earlier, like always looking to trade back and not really looking to trade up often unless there's a quarterback prospect I really want there. If you look at the history of trading up and trading back in the draft, the team that usually trades back and like when there's no quarterback involved in either selection ends up winning the trade more often than not. So like that's just been something that I would follow when I'm building a team, and it comes to the draft process.
Man, music to my ears as a Ravens fan, so I appreciate you, Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And it's crazy
Yeah.
that we still use that Jimmy Johnson trade table, right, during the draft. That thing is decades old at this point, and we're still using that thing to a large extent. And so it's kind of wild that, frankly, we're still living in the 80s, 90s in terms of actually going about this draft thing. As an economist, I think about, oh, this is essentially just an auction model. But, not everyone likes to think about the variables like that and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And to mention the Jimmy Johnson chart, like a thing that I noticed that teams are doing this year. If you look at like the Vikings Lions trade, where the Lions trade up to number 12, on the Jimmy Johnson chart, it looks like the Lions won that trade. Like it was like plus 10% in their direction. But if you use a more advanced chart, like Brad Spielberger at PFF has one, or like the PFF War one that they developed and stuff like that, like the Vikings on advanced charts like ended up winning that trade like pretty easily. So
right.
it's like different types of things that you can do if you're a sharp organization is you can kind of show teams like, oh, like look, you're winning the trade on the Jimmy Johnson chart, which is outdated. But they don't realize that necessarily. But like on an advanced draft chart, like we're actually winning the trade. Like this is beneficial for us.
Yeah.
For sure.
Spe-
Politics, in football, whatever. Jerry Jones trying to sell Tyler Smith as his 16th best player on the board. With more information and this data science and revolution, people can't lie to us anymore, right? That's really what it comes down to. And so, I appreciate that. But
Speaking of that Lions trade, do we want to maybe go over and check out some of the Lions picks from this year and see what our resident Lions fan thinks of them? Let's do it.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm done. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No. I mean, I think so. I think the theme of this Lions draft class was athleticism, right? So, Aiden Hutchinson, I think it gets kind of forgotten in the draft process. And he's actually a really athletic prospect. Like he's maybe not as athletic as like a Myles Garrett or like the Bosa's or whatever. But compared to all edge rushers, like on the aggregate, like he's an athletic prospect. And then, they also take Jamison Williams, fastest receiver in the draft. So, we talked about the tracking data earlier. And so, like, one of the things that Brad Holmes did a couple years ago, or I guess more than a couple years ago now, when he was drafting Cooper Kupp, when Brad Holmes was the director of college scouting with the Rams, was Cooper Kupp ran a slow 40 time, at the combine, and it kind of tanked his draft stock. But Brad Holmes used the GPS data from the Senior Bowl that showed that Cooper Kupp was actually the fastest receiver there when running in a straight line. So he like when Cooper Kupp dropped, he was like, all right, like we know he's really fast despite the 40 time that he ran at the combine, so we can take advantage of that. And then the same thing happened with Jameson Williams this year, where they had GPS data that showed that Jameson Williams was the fastest receiver in the draft.
Huh.
So they went in on him too and got those two athletic guys on offense and defense to help out there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah.
I'm always skeptical of GPS data, to be honest with you, because this is where we get the narrative that Danny Dimes is the fastest quarterback in the NFL. You know,
he's got that straight line motor, man. Right?
As much as I'd like to believe it from the GPS data, sure, maybe, but you're not convincing me if Lamar Jackson and Danny Dimes line up next to each other, you know, who's winning in a 40-yard dash right there. So that's the one caveat I'll give. But no, I agree with you. Aiden Hutchinson, the one thing that I noticed when watching his tape, you know, we're Maryland grads, both Mark and I, so we saw him torch us all game, is that Aiden Hutchinson has this knack for just or disengaging with blockers at will. It's almost as if he's blocked because he wants to be blocked at that moment, which, you know, is maybe taking that a bit too far, but I think you get my sentiment. His block shed technique is just unmatched in this class, I think. In that he, as soon as that run was coming his direction, he just shed whenever he needed to. Like, even against someone like Evan Neal, he was block shedding whenever he needed to, and frankly, most of the time it was just because it was sealed off on a different angle. But that his hands were just incredible to me. I don't know if that was part of your scouting report on him as well. I will say Jameson Williams was a real point of validation for me, considering my top three receivers. I know, a little bit controversial, but my top three receivers in order were Wilson, Olave, and Williams, and seeing them go off the board in order, right, like that was a real moment of validation for me.
Yeah, and as a Ravens fan, I was a little mad that the Lions traded up, but that's how it goes. The rumor is that the Ravens were maybe looking for receiver at 14, but then when the top three guys left, that's when they decided to just go with best player available. So, yeah. Oh,
for sure.
Are there any?
Did you have any scouting reports on Pascal or Joseph?
Yeah, so I was, so again with Pascal, we're just a very athletic edge rusher. So like I didn't necessarily like that they had to give up an extra third round pick to move up for Jameson Williams, and the roster has a good amount of needs right now that have to be filled to be competitive. And so doubling up on edge rusher, I don't know is necessarily a great process, but it does seem like Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell trust their evaluation, and they know that all reports about Josh Pascal is he's this amazing guy in the locker room. And after the Matt Patricia era, the culture is something that has been really prioritized by this new Lions regime. So getting someone in there that yeah, exactly. Yeah. So getting someone in there to help out with the culture and be an athletic guy on the other end, really helps. And now the defensive line is basically set. It doesn't need any more resources. They got their two interior defensive linemen last year with Levi Ozarinke and Aleem McNeil. And then now they have a plethora of edge rushers with Aiden Hutchinson, the Okwara brothers, Charles Harris, and Josh Pascal. So that part is shored up, and then they were able to work on the rest of the roster throughout the rest of the draft.
Yeah. How about Malcolm Rodriguez and James Houston? They did take a couple of linebackers late. How do you see their role fitting in with the Lions' overall game plan in the coming years? Are they, what do you think the Lions are trying to do with them?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, those were interesting picks, and they definitely needed to put resources towards linebacker because the current starting linebackers are Alex Anzalone and Gerard Davis. So
Florida boys.
They definitely need to, yeah, exactly. Reunited. So Malcolm Rodriguez, really like undersized, 5'11", but he's going to be, a linebacker with that high end speed, who's going to fit the run really well, which is something the Lions really struggled with last year, especially their linebackers. So I think that'll be, a good thing to have there on the inside. And then I don't know too much about James Houston, but being able to take someone that they talk to at the East West Shrine game and just different stuff like that should be pretty helpful. Like I think he might be another pick where like they really value what he'll bring to the locker room as well as from a player standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Barnabas,
Yeah.
did you check out James Houston at all at Jackson State? Was he on
I
your
did not.
position
I
ranking?
confess. He was not someone I had on my position rankings, but I will say this, right? Malcolm Rodriguez is exciting because he's so athletic, right? Big 12 linebackers are generally a little bit small, and they're speedy guys. Your Kenneth Murray's, your even Brian Asamoah in this draft, right? They'll run and hit, and they're not the greatest pass coverage kids, but they will hit you hard. And I saw Malcolm Rodriguez pretty similar to Terrell Bernard, and to see that the Lions got value in him getting 99 picks later than Bernard was great value in my mind. Also, I love the pick of James Mitchell. He's part of my write-up, shameless plug, at Campus to Canton. He's part of my write-up on some sleeper tight ends in the draft. But I love the fact that I was watching the UNC tape, and there was just that one touchdown pass where he has a defender all over him. There's a corner literally hanging onto his shoulder pads from behind in the end zone, and he just shrugs him off and catches that ball on out of structure. And that's just like the type of athleticism that I see in James Mitchell. He's not refined by any means, but he is an athletic kid who's going to work hard. As long as he can get past those injuries, I really like James Mitchell's tape, and I thought he was a value at 5 as well. So,
Yeah. So I guess before we maybe move on to some other teams in the NFC North, Tage, do you have any more comments about the Lions draft as a whole? Like any maybe, I don't know if you've been following UDFAs or if there's anything that you think, yeah. If you have any thoughts, feel free to shout them out.
I'm glad that, and yeah, thanks for that explanation on James Mitchell. That was really insightful. I'm just glad they went after positions of need and didn't go like, I don't like the term like best player available, right? Because like it just doesn't work. Like what if the best player available is like a kicker or punter or something, then you make an exception, stuff like that. So
But Kyle Hamilton though. But Kyle Hamilton.
Well, yeah, no, so like the thing about Kyle Hamilton is like the Ravens obviously see that as they switch to their too high structure with new defensive coordinator Mike McDonald. Like, all right, safety is going to be really important. We're going to send Marcus Williams $70 million to go play with us, and then we're going to make Kyle Hamilton be complimentary with him, and like the safety is going to be the backbone of our defense. And like I think that's something that you as a Ravens fan should be pretty excited about. Like,
absolutely.
It seems like they have an edge there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm even hearing some rumors about maybe shipping out Chuck Clark, which I'm not sure I agree with, but rumors are out there. But I'm just giving you a hard time. I don't mean to stray too far away from the Lions. Yeah. But
if we could do quick Michigan hitters, Tej, I know we need to let you go in a second, but
yeah, good call.
Some quick hitters on like maybe just like quick thoughts on what you got on your alma mater boys.
There it is. All right, we're in there, right?
Yeah. So the Dax Hill pick to the Bengals, I think, was one of the most underrated picks of day one. I think there was so much craziness happening with like a NFL record 9 trades, on the first round and everything. And like the Bengals just stayed where they were and took a great player who is gonna be a really good piece for their defense, which was already pretty good last year. He's versatile. He can play the nickel spot. He can play safety if he has to. 5-star recruit, like did well when he was at Michigan. I think that wasn't really talked about after the first day because of everything else that happened. But it was a really good move by the Bengals, who've just been really good at team building these last couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. And people see that safety and say, "Oh, you drafted a safety in the first round." People don't realize he played a lot of slot, and frankly, there's nothing on his tape that says he can't play outside corner either. Like I had him almost as a slot corner on my rankings. I ended up at safety, but still, he was playing so much down in the box there that it's a value pick no matter where you put him. Frankly, maybe he lets some of those corners that let down the team a little bit in the Super Bowl take a break every once in a while. So,
Exactly.
yeah, for sure. And Haskins was a little higher than I expected, but hard runner obviously. Ojabo with the Achilles was a lot higher than I expected as well. But early second round is that lottery ticket time where everyone starts picking those. As a Cowboys fan, we know better than anyone, right? With Bruce Carter, Jalen Smith, all those boys. So, but yeah. Any final thoughts? Any plugs before we let you go, Tej?
Yeah, no, I want to talk about that Ojabo pick a little bit, or just maybe the Ravens first couple picks as a whole. So when we talk about analytics, and if you've ever seen the movie Moneyball, they talk about these players that look like misfits, like they don't look like baseball players, right? But there's the line in Moneyball where he says he gets on base. So like, why does it matter, right? What does it matter if he looks like when he gets on base? That's exactly what the Ravens draft class was. Kyle Hamilton ran a slow 40 time. Doesn't matter. He's a great player. Easily the best safety in the class. Linderbaum has, 1 percentile arms. It didn't matter in any of his college tape. He was still the best center prospect to come out in the last couple of years. And then Ojabo had the torn Achilles. The Ravens are like, okay, that's fine. Ojabo is a top 15 talent when healthy, right? If he didn't get that injury during his pro day, he probably goes in the top 15. And the Ravens, again, we don't we'll ease him back in. We don't need him week 1 or anything. We still have a good roster. We're going to take Ojabo, basically another first round talent right there that they're getting, in the second round. So it was just really great execution all across the board for them getting really good players, even though other teams might have been out on them because of concerns that don't really correlate to NFL success. So I was really, really impressed with the way they handled everything.
Yeah, Aussie and Aussie by proxy, but DaCosta strikes again, right? So
yeah, and I don't mean to harp on this, but I will admit I got a real kick out of seeing the PFF guys piss themselves at the Hollywood Brown trade. I don't know what your what your perspective is on giving up a first rounder for Hollywood, but I guess that it's in that same vein where it's I guess you were talking more about the actual talent that you were drafting, but still, it's just knowing the value of your draft picks and knowing how to execute them.
But, well, the Cowboys traded Amari for a 5th, so
yeah.
That's another thing where they drafted Hollywood Brown, with a lower spot than what he ended up getting traded for, and they got all the years of him on the rookie contract. With they got all the production they needed out of him, and they shipped him for a better first round pick than what he got drafted for. That's just real. It was just really smart all across the board. Very great weekend from the Ravens.
For sure, and continuing that trend of college quarterback and receiver pairings being reunited.
Oh yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. I mean, yeah, I guess the Cardinals have D-Hop and Hollywood now, and do they still have AJ Green?
AJ Green. Yep.
Andy Isabella's in there too. That's fun.
I think he's actually off the team now.
Oh, is he? Oh, okay. Well, but
anyway,
regardless,
I know we need to let you go soon, Tej. So do you have any final plugs? Any things you want to share about what you're working on and stuff?
Oh yeah, for sure. No, again, thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. It means the world.
Yeah, no, I really appreciated having this draft conversation with you guys. It was a lot of fun. But if anyone wants to follow me on Twitter, I'm at TEJFB Analytics, so Tej FB Analytics, and I put out most of my stuff there. And then if you want to read any of my PFF articles, I recently wrote an article about the completion percentage over expected of this year's quarterback class and how that compares to other years. So it was kind of a deep dive into this year's quarterback classes, accuracy and what that usually looks like when they're coming out of college. Little spoiler, this quarterback class was the worst since PFF has started charting college data in 2014.
I'm shocked, I
So,
tell you. Shocked.
so yeah, if you want to go check that out, you can just Google, PFF Tate Seth, and it'll pop up.
Mhm.
Yeah, thanks for giving me that time to promote my stuff, guys. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure.
You're,
Thanks for coming on. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you, Tej. Like I said, I really like your work, and I will pick your brain eventually about some of the stuff that I see out there, because the economist in me is fascinated. So,
yeah.
um, anyway, thanks for joining us. And I'll talk to you soon, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you so much again,
Looking
Tej.
forward to talking with you. Bye, guys. Have a good rest of your night.
Thank you so much. You too. You too.